Now we are going to understand about a very important CSS property which you must always use and always know, that is flex. So I always use this property since I was a beginner. Until now I prefer this a lot. Even we have display grid also, but grid is, you can see, a modified version and it has some more functionality, but it's like for 2D based designs. And if you are talking only about 1D designs, that is single line designs either in a row or a column, then you can always use flex, and mostly you would be having 1D designs only. But for 2D based designs you can actually use display grid. Okay, so let me just talk about display flex, what it actually is. So right now I'll just comment everything. Okay, I'll just comment everything. And if I give you an example, okay, so if I say that we have a division here, okay, and I'll just say we have a flex div. Okay, I'll just give it something like this, flex div 1. And now inside this I'm going to give some span tags. Okay, some span tags which would be actually taking some very limited amount of space. Okay, so let's do this. So if I type Control C, okay, and if I paste everything, so you can see I'm just giving some numbers to this and I just want to style it. Okay, so first of all I would just say I want to style the span tags inside this. Okay, so I would simply say that my flex div 1, and okay, let me just fix this name here. So you can see my flex div 1. Okay, so flex div 1, inside this, guys, I'm going to say first of all I want to give it some border. So I would just say border 2 pixel solid blue. Okay, so I've given it some border, so you can see it has some border, and I'll also give it some margin so that some space is here from top and bottom and left and right. So you can see this is my division, right? First of all I've given this as a division. So right now you can see my flexbox looks actually like this. And for example, if I just give it a height of around 500 pixels, so you can see this has the height, and similar to this I can actually give it a width of auto. Okay, auto simply means it would take the automatic maximum width, but instead of this I want to make it a square. So either you can make width as 500, or you can say uh, aspect ratio. This is also a very cool property. If I make it 1 by 1, so it simply means take 500 as width. Okay, automatically according to the height which is fixed, width would be taken. If you don't define the width property, automatically 500 width would be taken. Okay, similar to height. So similar to this you can define different aspect ratio. 1 by 2 is different, 1 by 3 is different, according to the width and height would be adjusted. Now if I say that since we have defined the aspect ratio, here I would just define my span tag also, so that we can understand flexbox properly. Okay, so I would just say that we again have a span tags here. Okay, and I would just say that my span tag would be having width of 50 pixels. Okay, so 50 pixels and height of 50 pixels. And actually guys, you can see that it's targeting the span tags, but actually you should not target the span tags. You must use some divisions. Okay, so you can't give width and height to the span tags. What you can actually do is just give it as a divisions. What you can do is, if you want to select it totally, you can simply press alt, and then you can select all of them one by one. You can click all of them one by one. Now if I try to make a change, you can see I can make them change easily. Okay, so I'm just giving them some divisions. Okay, so now inside this we actually have divisions. So you can see that each division has some space like this. So right now you can see by default each division, if I say that each division is actually given, I would just say that we have a border for each. I would just say 2 pixel solid red. Okay, so you can see each has this border. Okay, so you can see, but the problem is by default they come with display block, you know. Okay, so what you can do is you can actually use flex property to modify them. Okay, so what you can actually do is, first of all, if I say that all the divisions inside them I want them to be display flex, that means they don't want to take extra spaces. So for that, what I can do is I can simply say display flex. If you write this, every content inside this, anything, not just a div, anything, even a p tag or any other tag would become you can say inline block. Okay, virtual inline block. You can see now it's not taking all space. Okay, you can see that it's only taking minimum space. Okay, now one more thing, you have a few more properties here. If I say flex direction as flex direction as column. So you can see now things would be in column. Okay, first thing, now by default flex direction is row. Once you write display flex direction is by default row. But suppose if I write row reverse, so you can see row reverse is like this. Okay, similar to this we have column reverse property. Okay, so column reverse is actually like this. Okay, and we have one more property named as justify content. So for example, if again I just make it a row, and if I say justify content, I just want the order to be same, but it must start from the end. Okay, so I would just say justify content, and I would just say flex end. Okay, so if I write this, so you can see now it's starting from the end, but the order is same. Okay, similar to this, if you just make it row reverse, so it would start from the front, but the order would be reversed. Okay, so that's how it actually works. Similarly, it works for the column reverse and flex end, and flex start is also a very good property. By default we have flex start. Okay, so flex start is a normal property which we always have. Okay, that means just keep the normal order. Okay, so that's how actually it works. Then guys, we have one more property. If I just want to say that this must be shown in the center of any page, that means suppose you have some content in this division, that means you want to show it into center. Okay, so this is a very common doubt people actually have, how to center a div. So just target the outer element. I'm talking about this div, how to center this div into the outer element. So inside the outer element, what you can actually say is justify content center first of all. So it would actually bring things in center. Okay, actually after this what you can do is you can simply write align items as center. That's it. So you can see now it's in center. Okay, similar to this you can see right now 1 2 3 4 5 is at the top right. So what you can do is you can similarly apply these properties here only, and by default there is flex direction row, so you don't need to write anything. So you can see also these also are now in center. Okay, so this is a very great approach and I always use it to center things. Okay, so the easiest way I have explained you, and now if you have some confusions, I hope now if you had some confusions previously, now I hope everything is cleared with just this. Okay, flex is a very good property and you would be using this a lot. Okay, so this was a very basic introduction of flex, and one more thing which you can actually do is we have one more property named as justify content. Okay, so justify, actually sorry, the one more thing here inside justify content we have space between. So space between, I actually just give some space between the elements. Okay, so if I type space evenly, so you can see the from the starting also we are also going to have some space. Okay, so you can get more properties, but just type control and space and you would get some shortcuts here. So you can see that all the properties are actually available here, whatever you can provide, and you can play with this along. Okay, so whatever it is you can do it. I would just make it center for now. Okay, so you can see that's how it actually looks. One more thing guys, I don't want to give these any margin or padding, because sometimes it's not very good to give margin and padding into some divisions. What you can actually do is you can simply say the gap between each item is suppose 10-20 pixel. So you can see that's how it actually looks. One more important property is, for example, I'm giving width of 350. So you can see that everything is fine, but you can see that it's going outside and I don't want this. So what I can actually say is I can simply say flex wrap as wrap. So by default it's no wrap, but you can see now the flex wrap is wrap. So you can see if the content goes outside the line, it would jump to next line. Even flex direction is row. I'm saying everything must be in row, but I'm also saying that if content out of the box goes out of the box, if I just make it full screen, you can see it, if the content goes out of the box, you can see it's going to the next line. Okay, if I just say that let me just increase the width of this. For example, I would just say let me just say that instead of this I'm just going to say that width is around, I would just say that 80% of the screen is the width. Okay, so 80% of the screen is the width. So you can see if it goes outside, you can see next line. Okay, so I hope you understood that's how actually flex wrap property works, and it's a very good property. You would be using this to make responsive designs. Okay, so this was it for the flex box. I hope you understood the flex box. So similar to this we also have CSS grid also, but I won't be using it that much into my tutorials. But if you want to learn CSS grid, then that's always great, because CSS flex box is actually only for 2D, it's actually only for 1D design, only for 1D designs. But if you want to design 2D designs, so for that you can actually use CSS grid, but mostly your 1D design would always work, like you would be dividing your sections into parts, and you can do things in 1D format also. Okay, so I hope you understood very basic things which we have covered today in CSS. Now from the next video guys, we can actually jump to the JavaScript also. Actually one more thing is actually remaining here. So let me just tell you, So for example, we had this division, right? We had this division. So I'm gonna give some transition properties also. So transition is also very great property. So I would simply say that I want to just say whatever transition would be there, it would be occurring for, first of all kind of animations or all kind of properties which we give. So I would just say it would be working for suppose 5 seconds. So 5s I have to write here. I would just say that we have a kind of selector here inside this. You can simply say if I hover on this div, that means I bring my mouse over this. You can see we have a lot of properties here. You can check all of them, but mostly you would be using hover property, and later on whatever we use we are going to understand in our merge type projects, very basic projects. So here you can see that if I just say that I want to change the width to around 10 pixel. Okay, so right now you can see that everything is fine. If I hover on this, you can see for 5 seconds it would take 5 seconds to just decrease the width. Okay, so you can see it actually looks cool, and you would be using it a lot for playing around, and you can see it actually looks cool. Okay, so you would be using this similar to this. For example, if I just want to change the background color, and I would just say that it's red, and okay, I'll just say that it's something else. So I would just make it blue. Okay, I'll just make it blue. So for example, if you hover on this, so you can see now the background color is actually changed to blue. So that's how you can actually use the transition properties. You can just give any kind of designs. If you want to hover something, you can actually give it like this. Okay, now guys, one more last important thing is CSS variables. So for example, you can see we have used red color and blue color a lot into our page. So yeah, everyone has to write this theme a lot of time, this color code a lot of time. So isn't that a shortcut? Isn't there a shortcut where you just define the color, and you just need to just change that color, and according to that each element would change? So there is a shortcut. Actually what you can do is you can define variables. So for those who don't know variable, it's actually like something like a container. For example, for defining variables in CSS, first of all you have to write colon sign, then root. Okay, always write root. Okay, now inside this you can actually define variables. So if for example I would just say that theme, I'm just naming this color as theme color 1. You can give it any color, and I would just give it red. Okay, so wherever now I write theme color 1, for example, instead of this, if I write where, okay, since this is a where, then if I write theme color 1, so you can see now it's taking theme color 1. Okay, so similar to this guys, if I say again this is also having the theme color 1, again this is also having the theme color 1, and again wherever I have used, I would just say that it's having theme color 1. Okay, so now I've given everywhere. So suppose for example in future I just change it to some other color, for example this color. So you can see now everywhere things change because of I have always given this color. Okay, that means this is actually very beneficial thing where you can change theme later on and it won't affect your code. You can see the code is same, you don't need to do anything, you just need to change one line here, you don't need to make changes in every line. Okay, so this is a very great thing, great tool which you can use. Not only about colors, you can actually say for example font size temp 1. Okay, I'm just naming it any random thing, and I would just say that for example the font size is 100 pixel. Okay, so what you can do is, for example, wherever you are giving the font size, for example if I'm talking about inside this division, suppose we had some elements, right? So I would just say that font size is actually, all the divisions would be having this font size. So you can see automatically each font size would be actually like this. So that's how you can actually define variables for each property, for any property you like at the top into the root. Okay, so that's how you can actually define the CSS properties. One more last thing is, right now guys, you can see we have the style sheet. Okay, so the problem here is you'd be writing a lot styles and it would actually increase the page size. Okay, so the first method was actually to write styles here, second method is to write the style in style tag, but the third method is the best method which I always use, that is just create a CSS file. So if I write the name it as style.css, you can give any other name, but the extension must be style.css. Here guys, what you can do is you can simply, first of all you need to remove it like this, and rest everything is fine, you don't need to make any change. Okay, just make it like this. So you can see it's the page like this. Now what you have to do is you just need to import the CSS. Okay, so what you can do is you can simply say, just type the link tag, and then you can just write it like this. So you can see I've simply given the href and rel as style sheet. That means I'm saying this is my CSS available, this is my CSS file. For better you can simply write forward slash. Okay, so you can see this is my CSS file. If I just comment this out, you can see it won't take the CSS, but if I write like this, you can see it takes the CSS. Okay, so now the benefit is, for example, if you make some other file, okay, if you make some other file index, I'll just name it as index 2. Okay, index 2. So you can see index 2 is also having some styles with the same style. You don't need to write again the whole CSS. You can see I've simply copied the file, called the file, and then everything is fine. Okay, so that's how you can actually use the CSS, and then that's how you can write the CSS. Although I haven't covered everything, but these are all the basics which you would always use in CSS. And if you can learn CSS completely and you are not that much aware of CSS, please learn CSS completely, and it would be really beneficial in your development journey. Okay, so guys, I hope you understood this video and we have covered every basic part of CSS which would be required later on. That's it for today. I will see you in the next one. Till then, have a good day. Bye bye.